So I started thinking, is there a way that I can retire early?
So you're in a position where you can't afford to go home.
Yeah. If I had money, if I won the lottery, I might try going back. I knew that it was fantasy. I wasn't kidding myself a bit. And because the girl smiles and sits on his lap, they think it's okay. No, they want your money.
You were hit by a truck recently?
Yeah, pickup truck hit me, broadsided me while I was on my little electric bike.
Did you have insurance, or do you ever get lonely out here, David?
Oh yeah. That's the hardest part about living here, is there's no social interaction.
All right, so David, thanks for inviting us today. I guess we'll start at the beginning. What were you doing before Thailand, before you decided to move here?
Well, I don't know how far you want to go back. I started in the military. I was in the Air Force as an air traffic controller for about a decade, and got out, and then that was right at the time when the PCs were just emerging, and I had an interest in pursuing that. I thought that was going to be the next big thing, which of course it was. And so I pursued that, and then from there I ended up working for the Texas Department of Commerce in the Office of Advanced Technology. And one of the things I discovered there was the emergence of the internet. And I was actually ended up, long story short, when I got on the internet, it was before the web. It was all text-based. They called it Gopher. It was developed by University of Minnesota, home of the Gophers. And I started playing around with it. I was able to get access. At that time, you had to be in the government or academia or science research, that kind of thing, to get access. And so I started looking at it and getting used to it and figuring it out. And I noticed it's all word of mouth. There's no way to know where anything is. So I created what was, in essence, the first index of the internet. And that turned out to be a little bit of a 15 minutes of fame. And when I was in the military, I had lived in the Philippines for a year and a half, so I had a feel for countries of that nature. And I had heard about Thailand while I was over there and how crazy, wild, and exciting it was. But I never went. And I was 51, working my ass off. I liked working at home, and I liked the money and all that. But and I had been putting money away for retirement. But I was just thinking, what good is it to keep doing this? There's no quality of life. So I started thinking, is there a way that I can retire early? And I looked at the numbers, and I was 10 years out from getting my Social Security. So I'm looking at, well, can I go 10 years on this? Well, not in the U.S. No way. And I didn't think I would actually accrue enough in other resources to supplement the Social Security even if I went the distance. So I started thinking, maybe I should look at moving offshore where it's cheaper. And I was looking at Mexico, and I was looking at the Philippines because I was familiar with it, apprehensive about both for the same reasons, mostly the crime. And got to talking to a guy I knew in Thailand, and I was telling him I was thinking of doing this, and he says, oh, you need to come to Thailand. He says, the things you're worried about by going to the Philippines doesn't exist here. And we backed and forth, over a couple of 3 months, and one day I just said, screw it. And 6 weeks later, I was on a plane.
And where did you choose to live originally? Where were you originally?
Bangkok.
In Bangkok.
Yeah. But then I ended up moving to Pattaya. Actually, when I came to Thailand, I had no interest in it. Zero. I was coming here strictly to get a change of lifestyle, to go do new things and get away from the whole work thing. But the guy I was staying with, he said, oh, you got to see it. And I kept pushing him off. No, I'm not interested in that stuff. And one day I finally acquiesced, and we went out on the town. That's all it took. 51, haven't had anything for a long time. And it's like an addiction, And I have no animosity toward it at all. I had a great time. But I drank too much. And part of that was I discovered, because keep in mind, I'm on this tight budget because I'm trying to stretch this money out for 10 years. So I have to stay in budget. And one of the ways that I kept the cost down was I discovered that you could buy a bottle of whiskey in a bar, and if you didn't finish it, they'd hold on to it for you, and when you came back, you could tap it again until it was gone. And I did the numbers, and that was cheaper than buying beer by the bottle in a bar. So I drank a lot of whiskey, and I'm not a whiskey guy, I'm a beer guy. And, and I had a lot of time, and I had a little bit too much fun, spending money on the workers, because I'm gay. And but it's really no different if you're gay or straight. The scene is the same. It's just male or female, doesn't make any difference. But, I just kind of overdid it. I knew that it was fantasy. I wasn't kidding myself a bit. I spent a lot of time learning about the culture while I was first there, and I understood a lot of things. I didn't master the language to where you are, but I've got a vocabulary and enough to get around. It just got to the point sometime after I moved to Pattaya where I just kind of said, I've got it all out of my system, and it just didn't make any sense to keep doing it. I was kind of burned out on it. It wasn't real. It was fun for a while, but it was time to explore other things. And I call it an addiction because I don't know really how else to describe it, but toward the end I was actually going out just to drink, and it was a mix of expats and Thais I knew that I would go out and drink and socialize with.
For that cycle that you get caught in Pattaya, what do you think's at the heart of it?
I never thought about it. I don't know. I just think about how it affected me. But there were lots of guys like me. They were out every night,
Is loneliness a factor in it, do you think? Or?
You know what? I think it probably is. It wasn't for me, but I think for a lot of guys, it was looking for love in all the wrong places. They were looking for that special person. But there were others that had no interest in that. They were just wanting to, to rotate, try something new every night or every 2 nights or whatever, or once a week. There was also the place where expats met. So, and that's one of the reasons why I kept going out, was because that's we, they sit at a bar and big round table and all tell stories and whatnot. So there was a social part of it, which then, avoids getting lonely like living up country can do. But I think some people, that's just what they want all the time, and it doesn't matter that it's not real. For some it did matter if it was real, and they kept thinking they could find reality, and they never did. I didn't. I knew better. I knew there wasn't going to be anything real in all of it. But I think a lot of the guys thought there was a potential for real.
So just before we continue with today's interview, I would like to mention our partners on today's video. It is TapTap Send. If you're based in the UK, the USA, Canada, Australia, or Europe, and you need to send money into Thailand, you can now get a nice juicy bonus using my code. TapTap Send allows you to transfer money directly into a Thai bank account. There are no transfer fees on supported routes. Exchange rates are competitive, and in most cases, the money can arrive within minutes, depending on the country, bank, and verification checks. So whether you're sending money into Thailand to save, to support a spouse, or just to pay for something locally, it's definitely an option worth checking out. If you would like to try it out today, you can simply download TapTap Send from outside of Thailand on Google Play or the App Store, and you can use my code word 20naked to get yourself a bonus on your first transfer. And had you ever had a long-term relationship, either in the US or here in Thailand?
In the US, yeah. I had a 9-year relationship, and I had a 2-year relationship over a long span of time. But those were long before I reached the point of leaving the country.
And then here, you never met anybody?
I thought, I had like 3 different situations where I thought I had met somebody that had potential, but thinking you have potential and really, is it real, is one of those things where you have to test it. You've talked about it, but I say you need to test them, and not just, for things like even how honest they are. I would do things like leave my wallet out, and I knew exactly how much money was in it, and I didn't put a lot in case it got taken, but I knew exactly how much was in it, and I knew that if they were going to steal, they'd usually just take some of the bills and hope I didn't notice. And then after they departed, I count the money, and different things to kind of test how sincere the person is and how honest the person is. And then over time, there's the thing of build me a house or buy me a rose farm. And when you say no, what does that do to the relationship? And what happens is they give up. You make it put up enough of roadblocks to where you can test the sincerity. It shouldn't matter whether I'm willing to buy a house. It shouldn't matter whether I'm willing to set them up in a business. If it does, then it's not real. And in every case, nothing lasted more than a year of all 3 attempts. And it's just because they failed to test. The other thing that I learned, and this applies to whether you got a relationship or whether you're just interacting with the workers, is there's a big difference between whether or not that individual fancies you or not. It's not love, but how you conduct yourself can make a big difference in how they think of you, respect you. I've always heard it referred to as how they fancy you. And the more the person fancies you, the better your experience is going to be, the less likelihood you're going to be ripped off, or that they're going to try and play little games with you because they like you. And as long as you're treating them nice and with respect, it's like you see these guys that come in the bars and it's all grab-ass, grabbing. And because the girl smiles and sits on his lap, they think it's okay. No, they want your money. It's their job. They're not going to tell you you're screwing up, but they're going to remember. And it makes all the difference in an experience, whether you're in a relationship or not, is how well you treat somebody. Here comes the rain.
So we've come inside because of the rain. So David, how old are you now? And how long ago did you decide to make this move to the rural areas?
I'm 71. I decided to move in 2013. I was saying before that I knew all these pieces that I had learned and understand about Thai culture, but there was a piece missing. It didn't gel. I couldn't get the big picture. I couldn't figure it out. And that's when I discovered that Thailand is a communal society. And you only really see it clearly when you go rural. It gets hidden in the big city. And then I could see the tie together between it and Krang Jai. Krang Jai is the cornerstone to Thai social order. It is what creates harmony. What everybody hears when they come to Thailand is Thais are non-confrontational. That's the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't even do justice to what Krang Jai is. It is everything. It's integrated into everything, every experience you have with a Thai, and it's subtle, and it dials up and down depending on the situation, who's interacting with who, how long they've known each other. I've talked to Thais who speak perfect English and asked them to explain it to me, and they've said, I don't know how. It's kind of like something you're born into and you're raised with, and it becomes a natural part of your being. And it was like an epiphany for me. It's like, I was ecstatic. From there, I could just, continue the journey with the living rural and picking up more little pieces of the puzzle that I still hadn't picked up, but they weren't as critical. Once I had that piece in place, it all fell into place.
And how did you go on about, you no longer had all your addictions, the whiskey and all that stuff, your party lifestyle had gone. What was the internal transformation like?
Well, it didn't really bother me. What bothered me more was loneliness. And again, this ties back to Krang Jai. In my opinion, Thais only talk small talk. They don't get into deep conversations, which would involve perhaps disagreement or debate, which we find intellectually stimulating. And so that's again back in the city, back in Pattaya or Bangkok. Part of the attraction of hanging around with the expats is you can have those conversations, but you don't really get that from Thais. So even if I could converse with them, it wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't be very fulfilling enough for my needs for social interaction. So if there was any really big struggle for me, that was probably the biggest. There are expats here. I've run into them. I've heard there's like a group of Canadians that get together every once in a while at one of the restaurants, but I've never run into them. And it's like, hi, do you mind if I join your clique? It just has never come up, and I've never run into it. So there's really, other than like a friend of mine from the U.S. comes up here periodically to visit for a few days. I have a Thai friend up here. Currently, he's not even up here, but that's why I came here. Is he's been a long-term friend for like pretty much the whole time I've lived in Thailand, and he was actually living with me in Pattaya because I had a spare room. We got to talk, and I said I'd like to come back up the country because I like it. I like the lifestyle here. I like the people. There is a genuineness about Thais in rural Thailand that you really don't get, especially in Pattaya. In Pattaya, it's just, you never know who to trust. And I just kind of missed that feeling I was getting from living rural. And so he said, well, I was thinking about moving back up home anyway, so why don't you come with me and we'll go move up to my hometown. I said, okay. And so that's how I ended up back up in this town. He started hunting around for a place to rent, and the best he could do was a shop house out on the highway. And so I said, okay, we'll go there. And the problem with that place is it was right on the highway, and the noise was just awful. But we stayed there a year until he found this place, just through talking to friends. Came over, looked at it. The rent was $5,500 a month, including water, and I said, well, that's a no-brainer. And I moved up here and just got settled in, and then COVID hit. And I was actually thinking about, for a period of time, leading as we got into COVID, I was thinking, after COVID, I think I'll maybe move someplace like Hue for a change. But COVID lasted so long, and I got so used to things, and I got so settled in that I said, nah, I'm just going to stay here. This is it.
Most of your days do you spend just alone, or?
Yeah, me and the dog. This is a pretty decent-sized property for a 71-year-old to keep up with. So there's a lot that I have to do. It's not an exciting lifestyle, There's no real social life. I quit drinking. I was still drinking when I came up here, but I had tapered way off to where I was just like drinking a beer at night, and then I ended up in the hospital with gastritis, and the doctor said, no more drinking. So I said, okay, and I just stopped drinking. So I didn't even have that. But there really isn't much to do, unless you have a hobby, and I'm in search of a hobby, but I haven't found something I want to do. So many of hobbies is you're not in air conditioning, You
have no air conditioning here?
I only have air conditioning in my bedroom/office, where the computer is and everything, and I spend a lot of my time in there. I don't know what the next thing will be that keeps me entertained. I mean, right now I'm dealing with this injury, but
you were hit by a truck recently?
Yeah, a pickup truck hit me, broadsided me while I was on my little electric bike. Broke 3 ribs. Not fun. I don't recommend it.
Did you have insurance, or?
His insurance is paying for everything. He's even, I have a caregiver that comes in 3 times a day, and I'm paying her, but I've been told I'll be reimbursed. And he said, anything the insurance doesn't cover, I'll cover. They've been really good about it. I mean, I could tell the guy was very remorseful for what had happened. They've come by, the whole family has come by. Again, that's what it's like up here. The whole family comes by, they bring food. He drives me to the hospital when I need to go get things checked. He wheels me around in the wheelchair. So I have no complaints about how he's handled it. And I really have no animosity toward him. It was just an accident. When I was younger, I did almost the same thing. I was lucky I didn't hit her. So I understand how easy it is to have that happen.
Do you ever get lonely out here, David?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's the hardest part about living here, is there's no social interaction. I talk to, friends and family on the phone, over the internet, and that I enjoy, but it's not quite the same as having somebody in the same room with you to talk to. But it's the hardest part. But it's not such a negative that it outweighs the positive, if that makes any sense. I still would prefer to be here. I'm not an enormously social person to begin with. I don't need that much of it, but I do need some. I need a small dose of it, and I don't get the small dose. So, I'm sort of like a hermit, but not completely. So it's tolerable.
Do you ever think about going back to Pattaya or going somewhere else?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I don't know that I will. And if I do, I'm not sure where I would go. I mean, I've been to Hua Hin for a few days. I know what that's like. That's what I was thinking about doing when I first got up here and I was going to relocate. I was seriously considering Hua Hin, and also I kind of like I haven't been there, but I think Udon Thani would be an interesting place to live, and it's got an expat community. It's just, it's like Hua Hin and maybe Khon Kaen is another one. It's kind of in between the big city rush or Pattaya scene and rural life. It's kind of in the middle. And so if I were to go somewhere, it would be someplace that's in the middle between the two. But the problem is it's really difficult if you don't have some sort of a support network to help you get set up. And now, I got a house full of stuff. And how am I going to find a place to move into? And if I go up there to stay temporary, where do I put all this stuff? So it gets a little bit more complicated to move now that I'm so settled in here.
Would you ever go home to the States?
No. There's nothing there. Nothing there for me. Yeah. No interest at all. I much prefer here.
Is there a financial aspect to that as well?
Yeah. I literally could not afford to stay there. Literally. There's no way. Here, I on my pension, I only spend half my pension here, and the rest just keeps going back into the bank to build reserves, which, you got to have cash reserves. You never know.
What's your cost of living here, would you say?
It's $1,200 a month. $700 to $800 of that is rent, utilities, consumables, pharmaceuticals, supplements, the usual stuff. And the remainder is buying stuff, buying a phone, buying a motorbike or electric bike or that sort of thing. And, if I don't spend that extra 1 month, then it just contributes to a bigger purchase the next month and that kind of thing.
If you had enough money, do you think the States would be an option?
Yeah. Yeah, if I had enough money, I would probably go back.
So you're in a position where you can't afford to go home.
Yeah. I don't think of it that way. I don't want to go home. And the thing is that I don't know. I've been away for 20 years. I think I want to go. I think I miss it. But do I really? I'm not so sure I do. It's that whole grass is greener scenario. I'm not so sure if I went back I'd like it, especially 20 years of changes that have taken place. And what I'm seeing, in the news and in social media, I'm not sure I'd like it. But it's crossed my mind that, if I had money, if I won the lottery, I might try going back. But I don't think it's going to happen.
If you win the lottery?
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to do it on Social Security. I don't know how people do it. I really don't know how they survive on Social Security. And my Social Security is higher than most. I did really well, so I have a very good...
Because of the military?
Military had a big part of it, yeah. Big part of it. And then I just had a higher income. The more you contribute, based on your income, because it's a tax, it's a percentage of your income, the more you contribute, the more your Social Security is going to be. But then, the military puts some money in as well for each year you serve. So I'm more at the higher end than the average. I don't know how, and especially if you're going to pay for for the hospitalization insurance that they provide. I see all these stories of 80-year-olds working at Walmart, and I know why they're doing it, because you can't live on that kind of money. It's just impossible. So, yeah, unless I win the lottery, I don't see myself going back to the States.
And do you worry about getting older here into your 80s and 90s, like support system, hospital, whatnot?
Yeah, of course, I worry about it. I have a lot of things in place. I have friends, and I have the finances in place to where I'm protected. I have buffers in my bank account here. I have cash. That's a big thing. It's like when this happened, I can't go to the ATM. Yeah, I got money in the bank, but I can't get to the ATM. Government hospitals are dirt cheap. I mean, it's just ridiculously cheap. They're very bureaucratic and slow. But back home in the States, medical is not fast. You wait in the waiting room for hours, So I don't see any difference in that. And they're very expensive in the States. Here, I self-insure. I've got more than enough money put away, way more than what they require if they do require you to insure. So that's not a problem, and I have a means set up to where I can get that money. I also have a friend who actually holds on to $1 million baht in the States, so he doesn't even have to get into my banking in the States to get to it. He can just wire it. He can wire it directly to the hospital if I need to. This is the first time I've had a situation where I needed home health care. And it's not really health care, it's just a caretaker. Brings me food, cleans the house. So I know it can be done. And it's cheap. I can afford what she's costing me easily. If I had to have a nurse, I'd have to run the numbers on that. I don't really know what it costs to have a full-time nurse.
If you needed this carer to stay on and help you, how much do you think it would cost monthly? Like if somebody else was wanting a carer around the rural areas, what do you think kind of budget?
What it's costing me for my arrangement, and every arrangement's different, but I don't think it would be a whole lot different, but it's $14,000 a month. It's $500 a day. She comes morning and she cleans, and she gets me my breakfast and makes sure I take my meds, and that's the longest period that she's here. And then she comes back at noon to bring me lunch, basically. That's it. She just brings me lunch and leaves. She used to stay a little bit longer when I was more laid up and I couldn't do anything, but now I can handle taking the dirty dishes and putting them in the sink until she comes back at night. I can handle getting my vitamins and drink, swallowing them. But at first she was, doing everything. And then again in the evening, same thing. She comes back with dinner and does the dishes and asks me what I want for food the next day.
And now you're 71. Do you look back at your life? Do you have any regrets, David, in your life?
The biggest there is only one regret, because I've thought about this before. There is only one regret I have in my life, and that was smoking cigarettes. That would be the only one. Everything else, I may have made mistakes in life. Everybody makes mistakes. But the only thing I truly regret was picking up a cigarette.
You did some long-term damage?
Well, 35 years. I finally quit in 2014. 35 years of heavy smoking. Yeah, I'm sure it's done damage. I'm sure I'm gonna pay the price. Yeah.
Do you think your life might have turned out differently had you met somebody more permanently and built something, or do you think you're the kind of character who prefers just to be alone?
Here in Thailand? Yeah, I think in some ways it would be different, sure. I don't know how much different it would be. I mean, it's like my friend that lives up here, and the reason I'm here, he's a friend. He's not a love interest, and he has stayed with me multiple times over the 20 years he's lived with me, and it's nice having someone around. It's always nice to have someone around. But now he's off in Pattaya working, making money, so he's not here. But yeah, it would make a difference. I wouldn't mind it, as long as you can get along, you know.
He's like a roommate.
Yeah, like a friend roommate.
Yeah.
And that's fine for me. I don't need that whole sexual connection, especially at 71, you know. That's behind me, you know. But sometimes, in some ways, it's actually better not to have that as far as having a good relationship. It can kind of cloud the waters, you know.
Mm-hmm. And what do you see for the future now, David? For your future, what would you like? How would you like it all to pan out?
I haven't really thought about it that much. It's like one day at a time. I mean, I'm at a point where I'm not kidding myself. My days are numbered, you know. If I get to 80, I feel I'll be damn lucky with a quality of life. I mean, that's my biggest fear is the older you get, the more likely your quality of life, health-wise, diminishes. And so basically my focus, and it wouldn't be any different no matter, I don't think, no matter where I live. It's more about just trying to get up every day and make it through the day. You get to a point at my age, you get tired, you know, and you just want to have a good day, a healthy day. But there's no real plans. Maybe something will come along to change that. I don't know, but I don't really have any plans. I just hope that I don't end up, you know, bedridden with nurses and, like, you know, long-term diminishing until finally passing. And like everybody else, I'd rather just drop dead. But it's just I'm counting out the last days, and I can do it here as well as I can do it anywhere. You know.
It's cheaper here.
Yeah, I can afford to do it here easier. But I'm happy. I'm comfortable. You know, I got my dog, and he keeps me company. And the neighborhood's friendly. It's like when I was in the hospital for this injury. They're rolling me out of the emergency room, and they're going to take me home. And when I come out to where everybody's kind of waiting to see how people in the emergency room are faring, my neighbors are there. You know, it's like, yeah, they came to check on me. And we have a good rapport, but we can't talk. I mean, we don't know each other that well. But that's the thing about what I like about up here is I'm in the emergency room, and my neighbors came to check on me. You know, you won't get that in Pattaya or Bangkok or even back in the States. So, yeah, I'd much rather be here for that alone.
All right, David. Well, thank you for sharing your story with me today, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.